3. And we're recording. Welcome, Zion.
Thank you, Adar, for having me here.
This has to be
Really
one of
nice
the
to be here.
most interesting stories of me getting you as a guest here because we spoke for all of 15 minutes,
Right.
20 in total if you count our last call.
Yeah. No, I think we spoke for longer than that. I think our first call was longer, no? I think it was quite, what, 45 minutes or so.
It was
Yeah.
like first
Must
ever
have
in
felt
life.
like 15 minutes.
Felt like 15 to 20 minutes because I was just like, this is a short call.
Yeah, for sure.
And I came
But yeah,
across your profile through Vikramjeet's because I was following him and someone had recommended that I follow him, and I saw
right,
I saw the poster and I was like, oh, someone who does movement and breath work. I must speak to him.
right.
Right. So Sahil, first off, because this is something that even I'm interested in, if you could tell us about yourself, how you got to what you're doing right now,
Okay.
and more.
Yes, sure. Um, it's always difficult to sort of trace, I always, it's like a very regular exercise for me to try to trace back to that exact point, which really kickstarted or sort of initiated
Uh-huh.
me on this path. And I never really find it. So just like all the other times, this is also going to be like one of those initiatives to find that one starting point. But I think just in a very simple way, I started out like a lot of people that I know, in terms of going through a specific college, doing a specific degree which wasn't really my choice, and then doing jobs and working with organizations that again weren't really my choice. But because there wasn't like a um, there wasn't a complete or a deep understanding of myself, I felt that I sort of needed to make those choices in order to reach a place or a destination that again I didn't really know whether it was whether I had any role in deciding that or not.
Mhm.
So I think that that journey of elimination, of really sort of eliminating what didn't resonate with me, and what I didn't like, was very instrumental in me understanding where I am today, because I've always been like the rebel in me has always been a very sort of charged one, and he's always right from the womb he's been fighting, and he's been sort of not essentially just speaking up for what he doesn't
Uh,
believe in and what doesn't resonate with him. And I think that that rebel needed a sort of a direction, needed a sort of a purpose, needed a channel. Um, and I think that process of elimination was that path, or was that sort of channel. It then brought me to Shrishti College, which is where I did my postgraduate diploma, and which is where I did my master's in design,
oh,
as
lovely.
well as information arts. So I think that, well, I'm missing out on a very large part of that journey before that, because I think my sort of quest, my spiritual quest, if one can call it that, started off with me doing a program with the Sadhguru. It was
Right.
an inner engineering program, um, and I did that for about 7 days, and then I spent some time in the ashram after that, and I realized, through some of the experiences that I had, that there was something more within me that I was longing for.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, who had planted it there or how it had got planted. But I knew that there was something there that, that would not uh, be fulfilled by the current structures that I was a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So then through that, I sort of entered, another institute called Shrishti, and I did my postgraduate diploma in art over there. And I think art really art coupled with my sadhana, with my meditation practice and my energy work practices, sort of really opened me up to the possibility of healing.
Mm-hmm.
To really healing from within. And I describe healing not as I mean, for me, the definition, I'm very uncomfortable with the title of a healer, which is why I call myself like a body work, movement, and breath work practitioner because I'm very uncomfortable with that title. I
It
don't
sounds a
feel,
little, it sounds a little, what should I say, boastful, pompous. I don't know. Like whenever you call your like, and it's mostly with self, right? Like when you're putting yourself in like, when you try and add a descriptor, like a healer
right,
or something, that,
right.
that that descriptor just makes you go, okay, I'm very uncomfortable with a description like that.
Yes, yeah. It's a very clenching sort of feeling, in the
Uh-huh.
body. Every time I say healer, I mean, I guess like it depends because a lot of people are comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that for me, I define healing as the opportunity to sort of um, as the opportunity to really discover oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sorry, Adar. I'm just going to quickly switch off this WhatsApp web.
No worries.
I'm really sorry about that. Yeah. So I think that it's um, it's the idea that the more that we discover ourselves and the more that we sort of go into ourselves, the we can discover the inherent healing and therapeutic qualities of self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I realized through my experiences. That's what mediums like painting and performance and my meditation and yoga and all of the other practices sort of helped me understand. Um, and really, what deep healing is, what deep healing from within means,
Mm-hmm.
and how that's different from just trying to normalize ourselves for society, or
Right.
just trying to sort of become accepted within within our groups or within our extended groups or whatever. um, I think I think that's where I'm at even now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I sort of have this understanding that the healing process or the process of self discovery is not something that is not something that has a time period to it or that has a duration to it.
Right.
But instead is an ongoing life process. That's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And through one of those sort of experiences, shamanism found me, as people say, you don't find shamanism,
It finds you.
it finds you. Um, yeah. So I guess shamanism did find me in that sense, and it really opened me up to um, a lot of possibilities within. It opened me up to the understanding of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It opened me up to the understanding of soul and what role our soul plays in our lives, and how important really it is to uh, understand our soul expression,
Mm-hmm.
and how that plays a role in the forming of the collective.
Right.
So I think that for me um, it was a very deep embodied understanding of the human experience, in its totality. So it
Mm-hmm.
really brought about a sense of completion to
Right.
to what I was doing. And after that, there hasn't been much the urge for really seeking that, that very strong desire for seeking and longing, and that has sort of reduced in its intensity.
Mm-hmm.
And that reduction in intensity is actually supported by a lot more playfulness.
Right.
It's supported by a lot more spontaneity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more sort of I guess a lot more life force,
Right.
or life energy that I can sort of really feel within me.
Mm-hmm.
In knowing that I am seeking or that I am searching or for something, but what that something is something I don't know. And it doesn't matter if, I don't know it, or it doesn't matter if I don't get there, in
Right.
that sense. So I think it's a very liberating sort of feeling, that one can feel. So
It's
I'm there now.
okay.
Yeah.
No, so it's strange that you mentioned that one, that you're okay if you don't find it, or it's okay that you don't reach it. You're looking for something. You just like you'll get there when you get there.
Yes.
Why I say that it's strange is because I think the question in my mind that came up was, do you think we ever reach that stage where we're done with seeking? Because, and a number of factors exist for that, right? I mean, you're brought up on a very healthy dose of you must have goals. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now? Security and all of those things.
Yeah.
You think we've somewhere lost that playfulness or that idea of just let's see what happens?
Definitely. I definitely agree with you, and I do think that we've lost that playfulness. We've lost that. There is so much fear towards uncertainty. Rather than sort of really trying to embrace it, trying to
Mm-hmm.
play with it, surrendering to it
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. I think that our need to sort of always be in control has, to a very large extent, suppressed that playfulness, that playful spirit that we have, and that the child within us has.
Yeah.
That curiosity and that sort of this that what is this, what is that, kind of thing. And a child just embraces uncertainty, right?
Right.
They don't need to be told to embrace uncertainty. They just willingly embrace it.
Right.
And I think we've lost that. Like you very rightly said, the seeking that the seeking has become so much more about how successful we are, or what we have achieved, and how we look at ourselves in relation to our external sort of achievements.
Mm-hmm.
That we've really suppressed these very inherent, fundamental, joyful
Mm-hmm.
qualities, within us.
Right.
And to answer your question about whether we ever stop seeking, I don't know if I have an answer to that. But I do definitely know that seeking is a very sort of it's very deeply rooted in our individual and collective psyche.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very sort of primal, fundamental aspect of who we are, in that sense, in terms of human intelligence as well. Someone said, someone I was speaking to, he referred me to this person, and I forget now who that person was, but that person also said that not wanting any desires is also a desire, right? So I found that
Yeah,
very
wanting a
interesting.
positive experience is in itself a negative experience. I remember reading that somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So I found that very interesting and really put things into perspective, because I was like, huh, it makes sense. Um, so I just think that if there was more emphasis on an inward seeking as much as there is on an outward sort of seeking, I don't think that the two are separate or
Mm-hmm.
independent or mutually exclusive. I think the way that we express ourselves outside is as important as the way that we express ourselves inside. But the seeking, the level at which the inward seeking should happen as a collective, is
Yeah,
probably not is happening. Is probably not happening.
you're right. I
Yeah.
see that right now. Like there's so much anger, rage, and all of these things. It doesn't sound. It looks more and more like a cry for help than anything else.
Mhm.
Like if you were to look at, and I'm gonna veer away from specific subjects, but if I were to look at what's happening around the world, and pandemic not included, actually pandemic included, um, there is I would say that this is, and this is from an opinion that I had for years, and it's not the case at the moment. I'm beginning to feel otherwise. But what I've thought since 2017 or whatever is that we have progressively gotten to a stage where we're demonstrating or expressing our worst. And back then it was a lot of judgment, except now I see that, okay, we are expressing our worst, but it's more like a cry for help than it is hubris.
Right.
Or superiority of the human beings, or conflict. Like, there's a lot of conflict, which is kind of scary, because it just suddenly feels like humanity as a species is about to explode because we haven't dealt with our issues. But I mean, do you get the same sense that is it a cry for help, or is it that we've just reached a stage where we're like where the inward seeking is just not in the equation anymore?
Well, well, I do feel that. I mean, I'm not so sure if I would call it a cry for help, but I do definitely think that there is a frustration.
Right.
That there is a sense of collective resentment. Towards institutions, towards establishments, towards things that are designed to suppress and control.
Right.
And I think that manifests itself in different ways. Whether it is the anti-CAA protests, or or so many other protests that have taken place. I mean, we only heard about the anti-CAA protests, but protests have been very instrumental part of our history, especially in the Northeast, and towards the agitation within the Northeast as well. So I do think that there is that sense of frustration. I do feel that is a very important part of the way that the collective is feeling right now. I wouldn't say that the need for seeking is completely out of the equation. I just think that a system or a structure that has been systematically designed, where one has not been taught or told that we need to take responsibility for ourselves, creates a system, or creates then like a future sort of structure of disconnection from ourselves.
Right.
So I think that the disconnection from ourselves is what is more prominent than than the need for the self, or the self being taken out of the equation. Because I think that it is always there. The self is always there. It's that connection to the self is always there.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be created.
It's how aware you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you and I have no role in that creation of the self.
Right.
I think it's just about understanding that that there is a self that we have not engaged with as much. And what does that self really represent? And I think right down from the educational system, education plays such a huge role, an important role in this. And if in an educational system there isn't like an emphasis on the self, then we have generations of people who are being brought up on the notion that self is only related to the ego.
Right.
So I mean, that just seems like, in my mind and in my being, that seems like a fractured system.
I would agree with you.
Yeah,
I would agree with you completely.
It seems like a system that needs spanking.
That's one way to put it. Right. So I'm going to move to a question that, I mean, and this is one thing that drew me to you, like
Yeah.
almost instantly, was your practice of movement and breath work.
Right.
And I've noticed that in my own journey so far, movement of any kind has played a huge role for me.
Right.
From someone who was very sedentary throughout childhood and college life to suddenly this person who can't sit in one place for too long.
Right.
What got you into that, and what all have you been exploring in terms of movement?
Okay. Um, well, again, trying to trace that point uh, to that point. But I think, like I mentioned in our conversation, I think I've always had a very strong connection with my body.
Right.
And because I was a very keen martial artist. When I explored. I never really stuck to one martial art, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I did explore a lot of variations in martial art, and I think that created a sense of connection with the body, that created a very strong sense of coordination.
Mm-hmm.
It created a degree of awareness, of the way that my body
Mm-hmm.
moves. Um, and I sort of took that, I developed that understanding, through the years and through my explorations into different kinds of, martial arts. And then I realized that that martial art, as beneficial as it is, is a structure um, of extreme discipline, which by its inherent nature instills a certain amount of rigidity
Right.
to a
Yeah.
certain extent. So I wanted to sort of break away from that, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, explore movement and my body in a state of flow.
Right.
Um, and how does that sort of help in releasing stuck emotions? How does that help in releasing energy? How could that help in sort of releasing joint pains or muscle pains, and
Mm-hmm.
and all of that by just simple sort of movement, you know and I think about 2 years ago I started really exploring. And when I say exploring, I mean like
Mm-hmm.
self explorations.
Right.
It wasn't really rehearsed, uh, or practiced or learned from somewhere. But I started exploring my own body,
Mm-hmm.
and I started exploring the different ways in which my body sits, in which my body stands. How does each emotion express itself in my body? What does an outward expression mean? What does an inward expression mean? How do different emotions manifest in my body? Which
Right.
points in my body do they manifest in?
Right.
And I started seeing what are the different ways in which I can work with those sort of sensations.
Mm-hmm.
And I can really try to understand, my body, as a container, rather than as something that is just limited to uh, pains, or to like a certain sort of, just to a very limited aspect. So I
Uh-huh.
really started exploring, just through very simple movements. So I've also danced, previously.
Right. 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 Right.
So I have a little bit of body knowledge, in the sense
Understood.
that a little bit of that knowledge I have. I'm not a trained dancer, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I have that gift to sort of awareness of
Mm-hmm.
the body. So then I started exploring these different ideas, like stillness. Like, what does stillness mean? Like in the body, how does the body respond to stillness?
Right.
What would it mean to arrive at stillness, right? So um, how does a body move in an agitated state? How does my body move in an agitated state? And what we describe as an agitated state could just be energy that is just waiting to be released,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So how does my body want to sort of release that
Right.
unexpressed energy,
Yeah.
right? And I started moving my body that way, I started just doing simple things with my shoulders, with my neck, and I'm just like, okay, this feels good, this doesn't feel good, this feels right, this
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. Really started making my own sort of movements, and then releasing that energy to reach a point of stillness. And then what does that point of stillness look like? And I think those were the explorations that I sort of started with. And then I realized that every experience that we store and that we contain, is contained within the body. So essentially, we can just through movement bring to awareness all of those experiences that have shaped us
Right.
into who we are, into how we can activate our memory in a certain sense. And I felt that movement was a very primal way of doing that. It was a very sort of movement was very characteristic of indigenous communities. They believed that movement and dance was fundamental to community, was fundamental to healing in that sense.
Right.
So I started to, just dance and, sort of move and, and use different instruments to assist me in that. So I use a lot of drums
Right.
in my movement work, and I use some other instruments as well. And it's really about just connecting to, the power and the sound of these instruments and allowing my body to move, in those ways. And then I connected with somatic movement and somatic experiencing, and I learned some techniques offered by Peter Levine,
Okay.
which is not necessarily to do with movement in terms of moving, but just to bring about a deeper understanding of the body.
Right.
And then I learned somatic movement for emotional resilience, and what does that mean? So I think all of those sort of experiences are how I would define movement.
Right.
And breath work has always been an important aspect of my journey because of my meditation, my yoga practice, my Kalari practice. And then I learned a specific kind of breath work, which is a shamanic breath work, which is assisted by the drums. So
how does that look like? Just out of curiosity, how does that look like? Because I know for a fact that a lot of people who are listening into this or who are watching this and they've been around, like whatever circle I may have heard of, I think their introduction to breath work is Wim Hof mostly.
Okay.
Or pranayama.
Right.
So how is this like different from that?
I think I would actually make the presumption that most breathworks practices can be sort of rooted to yoga.
Right. Yeah.
Or can be traced back to yoga. And,
pretty much.
Right?
Yeah.
I think everything, like, because yoga as a science has covered so many, it has so many variations, it has so many sort of layers to it that any breath work can sort of, be fit into
traced back to that. Yeah.
Traced back to that. So I learned it from, I learned it online, and I learned it from this person, who was, again, mixing and matching different sort of breathwork practices, and his emphasis was on a certain indigenous practice that he discovered during his time in Ecuador and in Peru, and he realized that using sounds and assisting that with a drum could be a very powerful experience.
Right.
So there were 4 sounds. There are 4 sounds essentially, which I can demonstrate here. But
I would like that.
Just, yeah. So it's just in a very simple way. It's just.
You instantly want to go to
Yeah. So it's just that, and it's sort of so it's just supported with the drum, and when you sort of when you couple the breath work with the drum, it's a very, very powerful experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you really you can experience a lot of release from trauma and from stress and pain, of course, but it also really opens up your channels.
Mm-hmm.
It really opens up your intuitive channels as well. Because it makes all the gunk uh,
Flow out.
disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah, flow out. So when that gunk disappears, then you're ready to be an open channel.
Mm-hmm.
To receive whatever it is that that you want to. So that's essentially what I practice.
Beautiful. That breath work
Yeah.
is so interesting. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about the
Very
possibilities.
nice one. Yeah. And I actually, it's very interesting because you can do it at different speeds,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like Kapalabhati.
Right.
So you sort of you engage your diaphragm in that sense,
Right.
right? So you can do it at different speeds, like to then. So it's a very primal, it's a very sort of
It's kind of like
shamanic,
a,
it's a
yeah.
very, it's got that very indigenous sort of feel, like so that really helps. I think
Right.
it connects you to something quite primal.
And you
Uh,
connect this with movement.
yeah,
Very interesting. Because
yeah,
I'm actually just trying to visualize what all one can do in this.
yeah.
But I'm gonna get lost in thought if I do that. I will digress. Sorry.
Yeah, I would actually love because I feel that you also sort of exhaust your limits of understanding.
Mhm.
So I think when you put your work out there, and like I have only learned when I have put my work out there and people have shared their experiences of what
Right.
my of the work that I do has been. That is only added, to the experience. So I mean, I would love it if you have something to sort of offer, and to offer possibilities of how this can sort of come together, because it's a very. I also tried clubbing this with Tai Chi,
Mm-hmm.
with Qigong,
Right.
with
Yeah.
Tai Chi, sort of, those very. So Qigong and Tai Chi are very slow movements, but
Mm-hmm.
I try to sort of combine them with this breath work and try to make them more powerful.
Right. Right.
So if a movement in Qigong is like very slow, I'll, increase the pace of that movement, and I'll club it with this breath work. So it's my hands going back and forth, and I'm just, that kind of
Ah.
sort of way.
Right.
So,
It's interesting that you brought up qigong because that too is a breathwork practice in a way. But
yeah,
the way and there are multiple variations of it. So my experience is in a more Tai Chi esque sort of qigong and in a more Shaolin qigong. So Shaolin qigong is mostly, how should I put it, the modern variations that one would see and
right.
the ones that I'm exposed to, because the ancient practices are like, I don't even know if anyone has them right now.
Yeah,
Modern day applications were endless, so it kind of stays on nasal breathing almost
yeah,
throughout. But it's for different purposes. So if I'm doing something more for just centering, I'm going to go just regular inhale and exhale, which is, but what their sense of breathing is different, because when you inhale, your stomach goes in instead of going out.
yeah, yeah,
And when you exhale, the stomach goes out instead of going in. Although when we breathe regularly, it's the opposite.
yeah,
So one thing that was very interesting for me was, in my martial arts practice, I've had good days, I've had bad days. On a good day, I've managed to last like 2 hours in a session without a hiccup. On my bad days, I've had 10 minutes.
yeah,
But one thing that really surprised me was how tired, how exhausted I was the second I did maybe just 10 breaths, 10 cycles of Qigong, which was surprising
right,
to me. Because the way they do it is they'll inhale, and you can try it right now because I'll demonstrate it as well. is
Yeah, sure.
you'll bring it up here, which is you'll inhale and bring your hands up, right? So inhale like you're
Yeah.
pulling something from the ground. Inhale, hold here. Now when you're exhaling and you're going straight, you're going to push it like you're pushing a wall. So the exhalation and the push, the compression of your muscles is going to be this. So when you exhale, and I'll show it to you like this so that you can see the hand. Then you inhale again. And you push it down or push it to the side. So it's like you're compressing your forearm in ways which is just like you're literally taking a piece of cloth and just wringing it like this.
Yeah.
But the purpose of this is different, is what I've noticed. Because the bit that you're talking about, like qigong, like you said, right? Martial arts is very structured, very disciplined, has a and when you're taught it for a specific reason. Like this is specifically to strengthen the body, calm the
Right.
mind, right? Increase your breathing, and it's. I've realized that martial arts is more of a very stoic sort of practice, in a way.
Right.
And I use that term loosely because I'm implying that there's no playfulness there, but I'm sure there is. But what you've shown me just now makes me kind of see how it's breaking out of patterns
Right.
and mixing them together to form new patterns, and then break those to
Absolutely.
form new patterns, which is very, very interesting.
Right.
What is the experience like? What's your experience been when you're sharing this with people? Like, how have you? Because, so to give you context, the show is called Break the Cycle, right?
Right.
The reason that I came up with that was because I realized that a lot of us are living in cycles. Everything is like a spiral staircase, and sometimes you may have to break out of it, break out of that
Right.
loop of running around in circles and probably just stopping, looking, and saying, okay, maybe there's a different path I can take. And that's what
Right.
happened with me. Um, so my question to you is, how have, when you've shared this practice with people and taken them through it, how has it broken them out of their own kind of? Do you have any experiences that you can share?
Yes. I mean, well, I have shared these practices with a few people, and I think what is really interesting about this is that what I do with, like, say, one person might be very different from what I do with, like, another person,
Right.
right? And so the basics of the practice could remain. But like I was working with I was working with a person here, just very recently, about a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing very simple sort of qigong practices and just sort of centering and grounding and different things. And I was just very playful, right? I was making my own stuff up, and
Right.
I was like, okay, let's do this and let's do this and let's see, because it's breath essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's I mean, as long as you're doing it with an intention and as long as you're doing it with an understanding of that intention, I mean, I look at it in the way that it doesn't matter if the movement that you're doing is identical to the movement that you have been taught,
Right.
or is identical to Qigong,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I might have learned like a series of 10 practices from Qigong, but I don't necessarily practice them in the same way that I have learned them,
Yeah.
in that sense. So, I mean, I do my own things, because on a different day, in a different time, your body is possibly responding to you in a different way. So you want to express that, and you want to sort of come to that centering and that grounding sort of position after that expression of what
Mm-hmm.
is needed to be expressed. When I have shared this with people, I have got positive responses in terms of in relation to in relation to the theme of this conversation, which is breaking the cycle, it has helped in breaking those patterns.
Right.
It has helped in generating insight, and very deep insight. About patterns that there is a lot of attachment to. About thought patterns, about primarily thought patterns, but how those thought patterns could be broken by not through entry from the mind, but through entry from the body and breath, and a continuous, consistent engagement with the breath and the body, right? And that's what the people that I've worked with have really shared with me. That they have broken out of very strong existing patterns, not necessarily through a 15-minute or 20-minute exercise that we've been through, but in a moment. Maybe the realization has come in a breath. It's come in just one movement that
it'll hit you when it hits you.
Exactly. So it might be one movement that you have not done before, but that one movement that you have not done before could generate so much insight about everything that you've been carrying for so long. And you sort of combine that with breath work, and you combine that with with the sequence. I think it can be tremendously powerful. So I think that's what people have really spoken to me about. They've spoken about how they were, as there've been people who said that they were feeling a huge amount of anxiety related to an issue, a huge amount of agitation, related to an issue, and they've sort of just broken out of that anxiety, that cycle of anxiety and that cycle of agitation, just through these very simple practices. There have been people who've, come to me with sort of being blocked because of work, in a work sort of environment. And I've mostly done this in groups.
Right.
They've spoken about how it's really like helped them, reach insight, about blocks. So I think that it has tremendous potential, in terms of really breaking patterns and breaking cycles and reaching new points of discovery.
Yeah.
And that space of discovery that can be reached through very simple, basic movement. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be, I'm beginning to realize, and I could be completely wrong and proven wrong, but I've begun to realize that the more freedom that a person is given in terms of follow your own movement rather than a movement that is being prescribed to you, the faster the realization and the faster the insight, because there is more trust. There is more you break away from the notion of what is acceptable and what is not. So I think the realization and the insight comes much faster in that sense. So I try to keep the framework of my practices loose. I try to keep them very simple, very basic, very fundamental, so that there is more room for adding. There is more room for discovery. So even the breath work that I do is a very, very basic breath work. It'll take me 5 minutes to teach you this breath work, literally,
right.
And then it's yours. And then, you do it in the way that, that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So the breath work that I practice now is very different from the breath work that I learned. I make my own sort of ha, hoo, hee, ha. I make my own sounds, and, I follow my own movement, and it works for me.
Yeah. I love that. It's a beautiful thing because I think we've been so attached, or we've been told about structure for so long, and then we want to break out of the structure without really realizing why there is one. And every structure is intended to be broken. Like, it's there just to set you up to a stage where you can break out of it and make the next one. And it's beautiful how you're doing that.
Yeah. I think my rebel is in a bit of a hurry. Wants to break the rules before he's completely understood them. So I have to keep checking him and saying, "Hey man, understand the rules first."
Yeah.
You know,
Like you know them, but do you understand?
do you understand? Yeah. So I think that's. But you know, it's also this. I mean, I truly believe that we don't need to be taught anything related to the body. I just think we need to be guided.
Hmm.
You know, and I don't think that I think they should that you know we could feel more sort of um, more in charge or more empowered if there was a sense of guidance rather than a sense of teaching that you
Teaching.
know you
Yeah.
must you must do this, this is the way that it's to be done.
Hmm.
But instead if there is somebody who's coming and say doesn't know the you know is rigid and is sort of you know hasn't is not loose and is tight, um, you know a person even like that has an internal rhythm within
Right.
them,
Yeah.
has an internal movement within them, and it would be really nice to sort of to discover that and to be you know a person that is facilitating that discovery for that person
Hmm.
rather than saying okay let's
Move
do
like
these
this.
5 practices and yeah you know and you're going to feel great after that
Yeah.
you know so I think that that's more valuable, it's more long term, it's more sustainable
Hmm.
because it puts the onus and responsibility on the individual.
Right.
And it also puts the realization that I, as an individual, am capable
Hmm.
of discovering this for myself.
Right.
That I'm enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move to my second last question because you very nicely segued into that.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. That's great.
um, so if I were to ask you, or if the person listening to this is just wondering about how to get started on this path of, I call it a path of expression and not and exploration, because movement to me has always been expression.
Yeah.
Exploration of movement is expression. So ultimately that. So if someone were to at least get started on finding, fine tuning, discovering, add whatever adjective there, their expression through connection with the body, how would one start?
Well, I would actually just the two very important teachers for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who have played a very important role in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and these are eternal teachers. You know, they are teachers that are always there. And these teachers are observation and presence,
Mm.
right? And I think observation and presence have been two very important teachers for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just observing as a sadhana, as a practice, what is happening in my body in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just observing that, observing your palms, observing your fingers, observing your forearms, observing your arms, your shoulders, how each joint, how each muscle is connected, and just really um, coming in tune with each part of that of this organism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and doing it maybe for 5 minutes, you know, or for 10 minutes, where you just sit with your body and say, okay, in this moment, I'm just going to see what's
What's going
happening
on?
within my body, what's going on, right? And one very simple way uh, that I would suggest actually would be to to just for about 5 to 10 minutes, just move the body
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way that you know seems comfortable to you. You know, there's this very interesting thing called the fuzz speech. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a fuzz speech given by this doctor. It's a 5 minute speech. You must watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, essentially, he talks about how when we sleep, there is fuzz that is collected. It
Right.
is that material that is collected between our sort of, you know, it's like that very rigid, very like um, very tight material that gets collected in our body. You know, at
Right.
the
Yeah.
end of each day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't move that, imagine carrying years and years and years of fuzz. Imagine carrying years and years and years of that tightness, like in
uh,
your body, you know. And he just says that every day and every morning when you wake up, just release a little bit of that fuzz.
Mhm.
You know, so just in whatever way, just stretch out your neck, stretch out your arms, stretch out your shoulders, stretch out your chest, your pelvic, your
Yeah.
legs, your thighs, and to then just come to terms with the lightness that you can feel after that. With that, there is this energy of just lightness. You
Mhm.
feel light in your body in that sense. And then just observing and just being present to what's happening. And a very beautiful technique that I absolutely recommend to everybody is just tapping
Mhm.
your body. Just tapping uh,
Right.
into different sensations. And this is something that I learned from Peter Levine. And he recommended this as an exercise. And it's just you take your finger and you very gently just tap different parts of your body.
Mhm.
Just keep tapping, and you tap one part, and then you just wait for that sensation to come. And if that sensation doesn't come, you tap again, and then
Right.
there will be a sensation. And
Right.
then you describe that sensation for yourself. You'll be
Uh-huh.
like, okay, now I'm touching this part of my body. Ooh, feels tingly. you know and
Yeah.
every time I do it, I just sort of describe it to myself, and I maybe give it like a sound as well, so I'm just like, okay, oh, and then I tap another part. So like it's like this really playful connection that I'm sort of, because
Right.
the sensation that I experience at the bottom of my palm
Mhm.
is very different from the sensation that I experienced at the tip of my little finger.
Right.
So I describe this, the bottom of my palm as throbbing,
Mhm.
and I describe this sensation at the tip of my finger as tingly.
Right.
So now these two sensations have their own identity.
Right.
So naturally, they have their own expression. So naturally, they have their own voice. And then I realized that just my hand is an expression of so many different identities.
Identities. Yeah.
you know So, I mean, I would, really fun, playful, this is playful. Like, I mean, I sit in the morning sometimes and I'm just making like, wow, sounds, in the morning, because that's how I'm describing these sensations in my body.
Mhm.
You would describe them in the way that you want. And I think that creates a feeling of lightness, that creates a feeling of being alive.
Mhm.
And it creates it kickstarts that internal rhythm within us. That rhythm, that cycle of life force that
Right.
is constantly within us. It kickstarts that. So I think that's all I would recommend. Actually, I don't have very serious, intense practices. Just the basic and the simpler, I feel, the more
To the folks
scope
listening,
there
you guys have no excuse now.
is. Absolutely, yes.
All right, man. So my last question, and if you're comfortable,
Yeah.
where can these people reach out to you for connecting with you, asking you questions, working with you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram page
Mhm.
which is called Rhythm in Chaos. You can find me there. I also have a Facebook page called Finding Your Rhythm in Chaos.
Mhm.
There's some material that I post on a regular basis, on those pages, and there are self explorations, there are insights, there are videos.
Mhm.
So there are different things related to the self. And essentially, it's just as I uncover deeper layers of myself, I share them. And Facebook and Instagram are beautiful platforms for that. So you can definitely find me there. I also offer this work on an individual basis.
Mhm.
So you can just DM me, and you can I offer them in terms of 1.5 hour sessions. And I work a lot with emotional healing
Mhm.
in a sense, or emotional discovery. So really understanding the expression of our emotions, and not looking at our emotions as things that could limit us or restrict us, but instead embrace them, as doorways and as portals into our growth. So I work a lot with emotions. I work a lot with with just with certain body work practices um, that that can be done in an individual capacity, irrespective of age group, irrespective of how comfortable you are with your body, um, and they're very simple, easy to follow practices. So I offer them uh, in a group setting as well as an individual setting. So you can reach out to me on Rhythm in Chaos Instagram and Finding Your Rhythm in Chaos on Facebook. And since I'm here, I'm going to just quickly market.
Oh, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we have a circle that's happening tomorrow. I'm co-facilitating the circle with a very dear person, Bikramjeet. And it's a circle for parents, teachers, and caregivers. And it's tomorrow at 5 p.m. On Zoom. And we're essentially looking at just creating a space where parents, teachers, and caregivers could come together, because we understood that that they don't have enough time for the self because they've dedicated themselves so much to another life, whether it is a child or a parent or a partner or someone they're taking care of. So we felt the need to sort of just create a space for discovery, for self-discovery, a space to slow down, to rest, to reconnect,
Right.
for them. So we do this every week on Sundays between 5 and 7. And if you're interested, then you can DM me, and I can add you to the circle, and I can just let you know more about the program.
Right. These happen every week. Yes.
That's right. Yes, every Sunday between 5 to 7. Yeah. So we have a specific theme for each week, and we explore that theme. So we bring in movement, and there's painting, and there's sharing. So it's a very nice space. We're in our 4th week now. So yeah. So it's a very nice space of sharing and coming together. And tomorrow we're going to be exploring grief.
Okay.
What does it mean to connect with our grief as a community? So tomorrow we'll be doing that. So it will be a very nice, beautiful, sacred experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, Sahil. This is beautiful.
Thank you, man, Adar, for having me here. It's so nice to be here and to have this conversation. I got so many insights just listening to us.
So did I. I was looking at my hand at one point. I was like, ooh, there's stuff I need to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I saw you moving and my body's like, dude, you need to get up. I'm like, yes, right after this.
For sure, it was exactly how I also feel. After this conversation, I'm just like, okay, so much energy now.
Yeah, like, okay, move around, see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening, join the circle. It's beautiful. This is my 3rd conversation with this man, and it's just been amazing. So thank you, Zahir. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Adar. Yes, for sure. Thank you so much, Adar. See you. Bye.